Hi, so welcome back again. In this session, we're going to create control for our eyelid joints or the eyelids. Now, if you already created an eye control with aim constraints, I wanted to make sure that you don't confuse the eye joints, the ones that are actually controlling the eyeball, with these new joints that we've created with these guys. So we need to make sure that we don't get them confused. I put them onto a layer, and these eye joints, basically the eyeballs are parented under the eye joints. So when we rotate the eye joint, the eyeball is rotated with it. So yeah, just be aware of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a joint right in the middle of the somewhere around here, so that the other joints, the eye joints and the eyelid joints, can ride along with it, somewhere around there. And this is not a bind joint or anything, it's just there to carry the other joints with it. And I'm going to make that the child of the head joint. Let me zero out its orientation. I think it's fine. And then I'll get the eye joints that we already had to be the child of that joint. And I'll bring up our eyelid joints, the base joints, for left and right, and make those the child of this joint as well. That's it. But again, just to emphasize, if you haven't created your eye control with the aim constraints, do not confuse the base joints of the eyelids with the actual eye joints, because the eyeball is controlled by this eye joint. And that's the one that you're going to plug in or hook up with the eye controls. So anyway, let's create control for the eyelids. Maybe I'll bring these guys back. So what I'm going to do, just create a simple nerve circle. We'll delete the history and freeze transfer for now. Maybe I should have added the joints layer later on, but anyway, it's fine. So I'm going to just snap it to the eye joint. Sorry, the eyelid joint, and I'll just rotate it. Okay, freeze transform again. Actually, if I wanted this to be mirrored to the other side, I'll just go back before the freeze transform and maybe just duplicate this once and just minus along the x-axis. And now I can freeze transform both. And what I like to do, start with a position where the eyelid is wide open, something like this maybe, Um, so maybe I could say these two up. Something like a 0.7 along the y-axis. Here we go. And I'll duplicate both of them, bring them down for the other, for the lower eyelid control. Again, I'll zero that out as well. Freeze transform. Again, I'll put it up, just bring it down. Maybe 0.4, minus 0.4, something like this. This one is left eyelid control. That's it. And then we can change their colors. So remember, under the attribute editor and the shapes. That's interesting. Surprisingly, it's got the overrides already on. So anyway, this one is going to be blue. So we might put something a bit more distinctive, really. Mind you, it doesn't matter because this is not you know, we won't get confused. That's it. Something like this. And then I'm gonna use a node called remap value, and we'll drive the rotation X of this joint using the translate Y. Now before I do that, I want to delete the keyframes. Double click and delete. So yeah. So the top eyelid control, we use the add selected nodes to graph. And I'm just going to remove the shape, just have the control, and then the top eyelid joint, the base joint. For now, we're going to have this set up. I might do an optional video on how to do fleshy eyes. So let's go. Let's use the tab button to bring our remap value. There we go. So it's to translate Y, and that's going to go into input value. And we know that the rotate X is 0 on the joint, but we also know that the translate Y on this guy is 0.7. So the out value will hook it up to the rotate X of this joint. Right. And this is how it works. The input minimum is the minimum value for this control as an input. So we'll say 0.7. Input maximum is when these two roughly meet. So I would say minus 1.6 or 1.5, something like that. We can go a bit more, or let's say 2. For this for the actual joint rotation, we want the output minimum. Let me just unhook this and I want to show the starting point. Eyes wide open or something like that. Let's say 18 minus 18. So we want to start like this. So the output minimum minus 18. I want to bring the controller back to where it was before. So when this controller is at 0.7 in Y direction, when the input minimum is, in other words, the default initial position of this controller is 0.7, the rotation of the joint is going to be minus 18. When input maximum is minus 2, in other words, when we bring this guy down to say minus 2, we want the eye joint to be 45 degrees. That's it. We know the default is 0. That's kind of our initial pose. So just a recap. It's like a set driven key. Input minimum is where you want to start with the control. And I said it would be good to have, to have that chance of having the eyes wide open. So I said, let's say when the controller is at 0.7, we want the joint, which is the output minimum, is rotate X should be minus 18. And when this guy is set to 2, minus 2 along the y-axis, and this guy is going to be 45 degree or something like that. Okay. Don't forget that we are controlling the rotation of the joints using the translation of the eyelid control. So you can do that with the remap value. So I'm going to do the same with the bottom eyelid control. So I'm going to add that to our X, and then we'll have this one. You know what, I'm going to do this in another tab. So when the bottom eyelid, when its translation is minus 0.4, we want this guy to be, say, minus 18 or something like that. Actually, not minus something like 20 degrees or 18 degrees. Okay. And when it's in 1.5 along the y-axis, we'll have this joint rotated 45 degrees. Okay, so let's hook it up. Okay, let's check our values. So input minimum, the initial position of this controller is minus 0.4. Input maximum is 1.5. In other words, this way. A bit more, 1.5 should be enough. And the initial, the rotation X of the joint, we wanted eyes wide open initially, and that's output minimum was 18 degrees, like that, as you can see. And output maximum, I think, is minus 45, so let's test it. Yeah, so one problem we have, because of, I should have worked more on the spin weights. So we've got a penetration there, something like that. Okay, what we can do, at this point perhaps, let me just check. we can have another remap value there. And this time we can bring in this joint so that we can control its, let me just set it to object. We can control its translate Y. So the same setup. This time we're going to bring this joint, the actual bind joint, into the mix. Oops. So translate Y into input value of this new remap value, and we shouldn't forget the initial default position of that joint. So I'm just going to take this back to where it was 0. I think it was. So the translate Y is 1 point something, 1.99. You could say, actually, we could set it to 2 for now. Let's say 2. The out value goes to translate Y. So when this guy is 0, we want the output minimum to be 2, the default pose. And when so we have that problem. Yeah, so at 0.3 or something like that, we seem to get that problem. So let's say when input minimum is at 0.3 or 4, we want the we want to start. Okay, and input maximum is 1.5 is the location of that control. So it's when we are completely up there at the top. So we establish those, and that means we now want to move this joint along the y-axis. Right now, by default, I put 2 to their original position. So when we are roughly, say there, I'm in, and then I can go in and say, right, see how much we can see. 3 is too much. We could say 2.3. 1.5 and I'll move this. Yeah, I think I need to go back and fix some of the skin weights. When I actually pull it out, they become quite obvious where I left the skin weight. But anyway, this is how it works. So you can get this joint, you can pull it out with another remark value if you've got problems, if the eye mesh goes through the mesh, the body mesh. So yeah. So that works. So we don't need rotation of these channels. I'm just going to take them back to default pose. And I can lock and hide scale and rotation, so we are okay. And I'll save the file. And that's it. Thank you for listening.